One of my favorite watch releases of last year was the Venezianico Arsenale line of watches. I did a review of the Ultra Black Edition, however, other dial variations were also very attractive. This year they came up with a new model with a Meteorite dial and some key improvements. In today's video we will do a full review of this watch. I'll give you all the positives and the negatives as I find them. Now, as always, let's talk about the case and the dimensions. This one, just like the last year's model, comes in a 40mm case diameter. It's about 44mm from one lug to another. It is slightly thicker, 9.95mm in case height, as opposed to 8.95mm on the last year's version, and it still comes in a 316L stainless steel case. The finishes on this case are seriously impressive. You have a combination of satin and high polish finishes. I particularly like these beveled edges on the case and on the bracelet, how they kind of carry through the whole watch. It makes this watch look and feel more expensive. And this watch is not exactly cheap. It's 1,000 euro, so that's quite a big premium you pay over the standard version just for the Meteorite dial, which we'll talk about in a minute. In the 3 o'clock position, you find a screw-down crown housed within these two crown guards, and even though the watch features a screw-down crown, it only comes with 50 meters of water resistance. For this type of watch, I think it's okay, although I do wish they bumped it up to about 100 meters of water resistance. That would make this watch a better go anywhere, do anything type of timepiece. My suspicion is that one of the reasons why this watch comes with less water resistance is because of the case back. This watch doesn't have a screw-down case back. The case back is secured with this 6 screws, and it features this nice laser engraving of Venice. As I previously stated, this one features a Meteorite dial, which does look really good with this design. The overall appearance of this watch is quite shiny, and adding a piece of Meteorite that is kind of finished with this polish adds another element of shine to already fairly eye-catching watch. This one also features applied indexes that are loomed. That's one of the big changes from last year's model to this year's model. Now it features loom on the set of hands as well as the indexes. Here's a loom shot for your reference. It's not bad for this type of a watch. The other big difference between this model and last year's model, and why this one is thicker, is the inclusion of the seconds hand. I think quite a few people complained about the fact that the previous year's model didn't have a seconds hand, and I think a lot of people do like to have seconds hand because you can see whether your watch is ticking or not. I actually think it's a welcomed addition. You do pay the price of extra 1mm of case height, but on the plus side, it just makes the watch a little bit more balanced. And even with the inclusion of that 1 extra millimeter, the watch is still very thin. And for such a thin watch, I think Venezianico did a pretty good job of creating this sort of layered look to the dial, because the piece of Meteorite is sort of in a center and it is applied on top of that running rail track all around the dial, so that gives it a little bit more depth. On top of that, you have the applied indexes that provide even more depth. So even though the watch is quite thin, looking at the dial, it does give it this sort of layered look. There's no writing on this dial except for the Venezianico written all the way by the 6 o'clock position, and by the 12 o'clock position you have the applied Venezianico logo, which looks quite sharp. The model I reviewed last year came on the rubber strap. This model of course comes with the stainless steel bracelet, and out of the two options I prefer the bracelet. I think they did a very good job with this bracelet. It is nice and solid. It tapers in, which is important for these integrated bracelet watches because they do have quite a bit of heft, and if you have a bracelet that doesn't taper, it's too much heft almost. The watch just becomes too heavy, too chunky. This one features a butterfly clasp, which is not my favorite feature of the watch, although in these integrated bracelet watches, that's what you mainly find. Luckily, I was able to find the perfect fit for my wrist, but sometimes you're kind of in between links, and it makes it a little bit awkward. On the positive side, the bracelet does feature screw-in-place pins, so that makes it easier for resizing. The finishes on the bracelet are excellent. I think that's what makes this watch really stand out. That's why I would go for the one with the bracelet instead of the optional rubber strap. The rubber strap is okay, but the bracelet is what really makes this watch. However, I do have a couple of words of caution about the bracelet. Number one, it does pull your hairs slightly. It's not too bad, but I did feel it here and there, it pulling on the hairs of my wrists, and my wrists aren't even that hairy. So I can imagine if you have a very hairy wrist, it's something that you should take into consideration. The other part of this bracelet is the fact that it is an integrated bracelet design, and by nature these bracelets sort of tend to flare out, which could make it a little awkward for some people, especially if you have a smaller wrist. My wrist is about 7¼ inch, 7½ inches, and I think on my size of a wrist, it fits really well. I would consider my wrist to be sort of medium sized. So if you have a wrist of around my size or maybe slightly smaller, slightly larger, the watch will feel great. It does wear larger than the diameter would suggest because of its nature. These integrated bracelet watches do tend to wear larger, and this one is no exception. I think this one wears closer to maybe like a 42, 41 millimeter diameter watch. So just be prepared for that. It doesn't really wear like a 40 millimeter watch. In the ideal world, I'd like to see this watch maybe 38.5 millimeters, maybe 39 millimeters. It's a small difference, but I think it would make a pretty significant difference on the wrist itself. Other than the bracelet sometimes pulling some hairs here and there, overall the watch is very comfortable. It is very slim, so it will slide under the cuff of any shirt, no problem. I mean, I'm wearing a hoodie, so it's very easy to slide even a thick watch under it, but you get the idea. This model is powered by the automatic Miyota 9 series movement, caliber 9039 to be exact. It is a high beat movement beating at 28,800 vibrations per hour. It has 24 joules and about 42 hours of power reserve. It is a solid movement, and I think one of the reasons why Venezianico chose this movement specifically because it is very thin. Also, Miyota movements are known to be reliable. In a price range of around $1,000, I think some people would be expecting a Swiss-made movement, maybe a Sellita or an ETA, although from my experience, Miyotas are just as reliable and just as accurate. The only thing that I will mention that this one does have quite a bit of rotor vibration and rotor noise. You can probably hear it through the microphone, and you definitely hear and feel it on your wrist. If you're not used to this, it might throw you off a bit, but after a couple of days you just get used to it, and it's just part of the experience of wearing this watch. I think Venezianico did a really good job with this watch. In fact, it's my favorite release from this brand so far, and I reviewed quite a few of their watches. The category of integrated bracelet watches is getting a bit crowded. There is quite a bit of competition from mainstream brands as well as micro brands. However, I do feel like this watch stands out from the competition. First of all, the quality is excellent. It feels very hefty. As I mentioned several times in this video, it does feel like a more expensive watch. I also like how slim it is, and the meteorite dial is a nice differentiating factor. If you're in the market for one of these integrated bracelet watches and you also want something with the meteorite dial, well, you have an answer. I don't think you'll be disappointed with the quality, with the finishes, or the performance of this model. I appreciate you watching this video all the way until the end. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this in the future, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this model. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you have any experience with Venezianico as a brand? Leave your comments below. I always enjoy reading them. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.